Welcome to my channel, The Good Book Tales. Today, I want to take you on a journey, one filled with mystery, faith, and the kind of suspense that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Imagine a city surrounded by towering walls so strong, so imposing, that no army could hope to break through them. A city named Jericho. For centuries, these walls stood as an unyielding barrier, a fortress that seemed invincible. But what happens when those walls, literal and metaphorical, begin to crumble? That's the story we're diving into today. You might have heard the phrase, "The walls of Jericho fall down." But do you really know what it means? This isn't just an ancient tale. It's a story packed with deeper themes about hope, courage, and the power of belief. It's about a people who faced impossible odds, about an army marching around a city in silence, and about a moment when everything changed in an instant. The fall of Jericho's walls is more than a historical event. It's a powerful symbol that still resonates today. Picture the scene. The Israelites, led by Joshua, have been wandering in the desert for years. Their hope is fading, their journey exhausting. And yet, in front of them stands Jericho, a city wrapped in walls so thick and tall, it feels like a dead end. No matter how many times they try, they can't get through. But then, something unexpected happens. Not a loud battle cry, not a rush of soldiers, but a series of quiet marches, trumpets sounding, and a plan that defies logic. It's a moment that challenges everything we think about strength and victory. But what really went on behind those walls? What secrets did the city hold? And how did the people outside those walls hold on to their faith when everything seemed lost? These are questions that have puzzled historians and storytellers for centuries. And as we peel back the layers of this story, you'll discover it's not just about the fall of stone and mortar, but about the fall of fear, doubt, and the walls we all build inside ourselves. This is a story about transformation, about how sometimes the strongest walls don't fall because of brute force, but because of a shift in belief and unity. It's a story that challenges us to think about the battles we face in our own lives, and what walls might be standing in our way. Are we ready to see those walls come down? As we get deeper into the story, I'll introduce you to the key characters. Joshua, the leader with a vision, the mysterious priests carrying the ark, and the people of Jericho, caught in a city that's both their home and their prison. Their choices, their fears, and their hopes set the stage for an ending none of them could fully predict. But here's the catch. Just as the walls begin to shake, just as the city's fate hangs in the balance, something happens that no one saw coming. The ground trembles, the air thickens with tension, and the silence before the storm feels deafening. What exactly caused the walls of Jericho to fall? And what did it mean for the people inside and outside the city? I won't spoil the surprise just yet. This story is more than just bricks and battles. It's about faith, resilience, and the unexpected ways life can change in a single moment. So stick around, because the next part of this video will reveal the incredible truth behind the fall of Jericho's walls and how it still inspires us today. If you've ever felt stuck, like there's an invisible wall holding you back, this story might just give you the perspective you need to break free. So hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and get ready to uncover the mystery behind one of the most famous stories ever told. Because sometimes the greatest walls fall down not with noise, but with the power of quiet faith. As we step back a little, it's important to understand the world Joshua and the Israelites found themselves in before the walls even began to tremble. These weren't just ordinary walls made of stone. They were symbols of protection, power, and pride for the people of Jericho. Imagine living day after day behind walls that not only shield you from enemies, but also separate you from the unknown beyond. For the people inside, Jericho was their fortress, their home, and their entire world. The walls gave them a sense of safety, but they also trapped them in a story they couldn't fully control. Outside those walls, the Israelites were on a mission that seemed impossible. They had spent years wandering through deserts, facing hardships that tested their spirit and faith. Their leader, Joshua, wasn't just a commander. He was a man carrying the weight of a whole people's hope on his shoulders. His name itself means, "The Lord is salvation," and that faith was what kept the group moving forward, even when the odds felt stacked against them. But Jericho wasn't just a city on their path. It was the first major obstacle standing between the Israelites and the promise of a new land, a land flowing with milk and honey, as their stories told them. The stakes were enormous. If Jericho's walls held firm, it could mean the end of their journey, the loss of their dream. But if those walls fell, it would be a victory that could inspire generations. What made this story so extraordinary is the unusual strategy that Joshua used. It wasn't about charging in with swords blazing or a surprise attack under the cover of night. Instead, Joshua followed instructions that seemed strange to his soldiers, marching around the city in silence, blowing trumpets, and waiting patiently. This wasn't a battle plan born out of military tactics alone. It was a plan rooted in something deeper: faith, obedience, and the belief that something beyond human strength was at work. And here's where the mystery deepens. The priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred symbol of God's presence, led the procession. It was as if the whole city was about to witness a confrontation not just of armies, but of wills, between human determination and divine power. The tension grew with each silent step. Every blast of the trumpet, and the watchful eyes of Jericho's defenders waiting to see what would happen next. Behind the thick stone walls, the people of Jericho faced their own fears. They could hear the strange sounds outside, the echoes of footsteps and horns, but they had no idea what it all meant. Were these just strange rituals, or something far more powerful? The uncertainty was almost unbearable. What if their walls were not as strong as they believed? The scene was set for a moment that would change everything, but before we get to that, we have to understand the full weight of what was at stake. For both sides, the fall of Jericho's walls wasn't just a military victory, it was a turning point filled with hope, fear, and a mystery that still captivates us today. What actually caused the walls to collapse? Was it the sound of the trumpets, the faith of the Israelites, or something even more unexpected? Hold on tight, because the answer is coming. But it's not as simple as you might think. Inside Jericho, fear and uncertainty began to take hold. The city's leaders paced nervously behind those massive walls, struggling to understand what the strange sounds outside could mean. Was it a trick? A strange ritual? Or the beginning of a siege unlike any they had ever seen? For them, the walls weren't just physical barriers. They were a source of pride and identity. To imagine those walls falling was to imagine their whole world collapsing. Yet despite their confidence in the strength of their defenses, an undercurrent of doubt crept in, quietly unsettling even the bravest among them. Meanwhile, Joshua and his people were facing their own inner battles. The march around Jericho was unlike anything they had done before. Some soldiers wondered if this silent procession, this seemingly slow and strange plan, was really going to work. The weight of expectation pressed heavily on Joshua's shoulders. He wasn't just leading an army. He was leading a people whose hopes and futures depended on faith and perseverance. The tension among the Israelites grew with every circle they completed around the city. Was this act of obedience enough to bring down such an imposing fortress? There was also a deeper conflict at play, one between human logic and faith. Many outside Jericho questioned Joshua's unusual strategy. How could silence and sound alone bring down walls that years of fighting never could? But Joshua believed there was more at work than what the eye could see. This battle wasn't just about strength or weapons. It was about trust in something greater. In the midst of this, personal stories emerged. Soldiers who had fought countless battles began to feel a strange mix of hope and fear. Some found themselves praying in ways they never had before, while others struggled with doubt, wondering if the walls would hold and their journey end in failure. Behind the scenes, alliances, fears, and hopes intertwined, creating a complex web of human emotions that made the fall of Jericho not just a physical event, but a deeply human story. And as the final day approached, the question lingered in the air. What would it take to break the walls that seemed unbreakable? The answer was closer than anyone expected, but still shrouded in mystery. The day had finally come. After days of silent marches around Jericho, the air was thick with anticipation and unease. Every footstep echoed like a heartbeat, slow and steady, as Joshua and his people prepared for what seemed like the impossible. Inside the city, the walls loomed larger than ever, casting long shadows over the anxious faces of the defenders. They listened closely, trying to decode the strange rhythm of the marching feet and the occasional blasts of the trumpets. Some whispered fears that this was no ordinary battle, that something far greater was unfolding. Joshua stood at the forefront, steady and calm on the outside, but inside his heart raced. This moment was the culmination of years of struggle, hope, and faith. He had rallied a people who had faced countless hardships, and now all their dreams hinged on what was about to happen. The soldiers around him felt it too, the tension so thick it almost seemed to vibrate in the air. Would the walls that had stood for so long finally give way? Or was this all just a desperate gamble? The priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant moved silently, their presence a reminder that this was not just a military campaign, but a spiritual journey. The entire army was bound together by a sense of purpose that transcended fear. Yet beneath the surface, doubt still lingered in many hearts. Some wondered if their faith was strong enough, if their obedience would truly bring down the walls. As the seventh day arrived, the Israelites marched around the city 7 times. Each circle felt heavier than the last, the tension mounting with every step. The people inside Jericho held their breath, watching, waiting. The quiet was almost unbearable, broken only by the faint blasts of trumpets that seemed to carry an otherworldly power. And then, as the final march came to a close, everything changed. The moment everyone had been waiting for was right on the edge, poised to explode. The walls, the fears, the hopes, all about to collide in a way that no one could have predicted. But what happened next? That we'll discover together in the next part of this story. Just when it seemed the moment of victory was within reach, the unexpected happened. The ground beneath Jericho began to tremble, not with the footsteps of an advancing army, but with a rumble so deep it seemed to shake the very earth itself. The people inside the city clung to the walls, eyes wide with terror. What was this sudden force? Was it a natural earthquake, or something far beyond their understanding? The soldiers of Israel stopped in their tracks, caught between hope and fear. The walls that had stood for generations were beginning to crack, but the cause was still a mystery. Joshua's heart pounded harder than ever. The strange, silent strategy had worked so far, but now the stakes had escalated beyond anything he had imagined. The city's walls weren't just beginning to fall. They were crumbling as if some invisible hand was tearing them down. The priests carrying the ark moved forward, their voices rising in a powerful chant that seemed to merge with the trembling earth and the blaring trumpets. This was no ordinary battle anymore. It had become a clash between faith and fear, between the seen and the unseen. Inside Jericho, chaos erupted. The defenders scrambled, trying to hold on to their pride and their homes. Mothers held their children close, and warriors gripped their weapons tighter, unwilling to admit that the walls might actually fall. The city's leaders barked orders, desperate to rally their people, but their voices were drowned out by the growing roar of destruction. The walls, once symbols of security, now felt like fragile barriers waiting to collapse. Meanwhile, among the Israelites, whispers spread like wildfire. Some saw the trembling as a sign of divine intervention, proof that their faith was being rewarded. Others, however, feared they were witnessing the wrath of a power they couldn't control. The tension was unbearable. Was this a miracle or a disaster waiting to happen? Joshua's leadership was about to be tested like never before. The unexpected earthquake, combined with the relentless marching and trumpet blasts, created a moment of pure suspense. Would the walls completely fall? Would Jericho's defenders surrender or fight back with desperate fury? The people of Israel stood on the edge of destiny, caught between hope and the unknown. As the dust began to rise and the sound of crumbling stone filled the air, one thing was clear. The story of Jericho was far from over. The walls might be falling, but the true battle, one of faith, courage, and survival, was only just beginning. What happens next? Stay with me, because the next part will reveal the heart of this incredible story. As the dust settled and the roar of crumbling stones faded, the people of Jericho watched in stunned silence. The walls that had seemed invincible were now nothing but rubble at their feet. The ground still trembled gently, as if the earth itself was catching its breath after the momentous event. Joshua's army stood ready, eyes wide with a mix of awe and disbelief. The impossible had happened. The walls had fallen without a single sword being swung, without a single arrow fired. For the Israelites, it was a moment of overwhelming victory, a testament to their faith and obedience. They rushed forward, crossing the broken barriers with cautious excitement, knowing that this was their chance to claim the land they had been promised. The priests carrying the ark led the way, their presence a symbol of hope and divine favor. The sound of trumpets still echoed in the air, a reminder of the power of faith that had shattered those ancient walls. Inside the city, the defenders were overcome by a wave of panic and confusion. Their pride shattered along with the walls. Many surrendered without a fight, while others fled into the streets, unsure of what fate awaited them. The fall of Jericho was more than a military defeat. It was a profound turning point, signaling that the old order was crumbling just as surely as the city's walls. But just when it seemed the story had reached its end, a new twist caught everyone off guard. As the Israelites celebrated their victory, Joshua received a warning, one that would change everything. Hidden deep within the ruins, a secret chamber was discovered. Inside, ancient scrolls and artifacts hinted at a power that had been carefully guarded for generations. A power connected not only to Jericho's strength, but to the very fate of the land itself. This revelation sent a chill through Joshua's heart. The battle for Jericho was over, but the true test was only beginning. The walls had fallen, yes, but now the Israelites faced a new challenge, one that would test their faith and courage in ways they never expected. So, what exactly was hidden inside that chamber? And how would it change the future of Joshua's people? The answers lie just beyond this story's climax, and they will surprise you. Stay tuned, because the journey is far from over. With the walls of Jericho lying in ruins, Joshua and his people had finally crossed a monumental threshold. The victory was not just about conquering a city. It was about overcoming fear, trusting in faith, and believing that something greater was guiding their steps. The Israelites moved forward with cautious hope, aware that the road ahead still held many challenges. The fall of Jericho was just the beginning of a much larger journey. The discovery of the secret chamber beneath the rubble brought a new layer to the story. Inside, the ancient scrolls revealed truths about Jericho's power, how the city's strength was not only in its walls, but in the secrets it guarded. secrets tied to the land's history and its future. Joshua understood that their mission was more than a simple conquest. It was about stewardship, about honoring a legacy and responsibility that stretched beyond the battlefield. As the Israelites settled into their new home, they carried with them lessons learned from the fall of Jericho. The walls that once seemed unbreakable had fallen through faith and unity, reminding everyone that no obstacle is too great when people stand together with purpose. The courage to trust the unknown, to follow a plan that defies logic, had turned the tide in their favor. It was a lesson in patience, obedience, and believing in something bigger than oneself. The people of Jericho, once trapped behind their mighty walls, were left to rebuild their lives in a new reality. Their story became intertwined with the Israelites, a reminder that even the strongest walls, whether physical or emotional, can come down. It's a story about resilience and change, about the power of hope when it seems all is lost. Looking back, the fall of Jericho continues to inspire us today. It teaches us that sometimes the battles we face aren't won by force, but by faith, courage, and the willingness to trust in the process. The story invites us to examine the walls we face in our own lives, walls built by fear, doubt, or past failures, and challenges us to believe that those walls can fall too. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's most captivating stories. If you've enjoyed exploring the fall of Jericho, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next adventure here on Vibes of Life. Remember, sometimes the greatest walls fall quietly, and the biggest victories come when we least expect them. Until next time, keep the faith, stay curious, and keep breaking down your own walls.